In this tutorial, we are going to discuss about blocks in Java. So we have multiple blocks in Java. First, we will discuss about static block. Then we have non-static block. Then we have constructor. So why we need blocks? Why we need non-static block and why we need constructor? So static blocks is a class level block. So suppose we have one class A. In this class we have static block. To declare static block, just we need to write static and then open and close curly braces. That is static block. And if you want to create non-static block, just we need to write this open and curly braces. This is non-static block. That's it. So static block is a class level block and non-static block is a object level block. So every time whenever class loads, it will execute static block once. Every time if you create an object, then it is mandatory to execute all of their non-static block. Every time if you loads the class, it is mandatory to execute static block. So first precedence goes to static block because it's a class level block and class load first. So here we have context. I have earlier shown you the context of class. Suppose if you are loading our class, so here context, this is the context of A. To create context of class A, it is mandatory to execute all of its static block. So before load into the RAM, it will execute all the static blocks of this class. Then only context of class A will be created. Let's suppose you write one statement like new of A, and what happens in that case, it will check whether context of A has been created or not. So if it is not created, then it will try to create context of class A. Okay, so to create context of class A, it is mandatory to execute all of its static block. Then static block executed. Let's suppose a static block executed. Then second thing, so first of all a static block has been executed. Then what happens, it will check whether the class has any non-static variable or not, non-static block or not. If it is there, then it will execute non-static block. Let's suppose this is object of class A. So always object of class will be created in association with context of class. So without of context, we cannot create object of class A. So first we need to load the class and we need to create the context. Context is nothing but a memory location for class members, and object is nothing but memory location for the non-static member. So always object will be created in the association with context. If you write this sentence, then in background what happens, it will check whether context of class A is available or not. If it is not available, then it will create context of class A. Okay, if it is available, it won't create the context of class A. Then it will tries to create the object of class A. Then it will check whether the class has non-static member or not. If it has static members, then it will execute the non-static block first, then it will execute constructor. Now after this it will execute constructor. So these are one-time execution blocks, whether it's a static block, a non-static block or constructor. If you want to execute the logic which execute only once when class loads, then you can write the logic inside the static block. If you want every time whenever you create object it will execute, then you can write that logic in non-static block or in the constructor also. So inside the constructor also executed once before creation of the object. So this is the precedence, or we can say this is the sequence of blocks. So let's get started with the example so that you can understand more. I will create one package blocks here so that we will separate all these things. So this is my blocks. Inside the blocks I will be creating one class. Let's suppose class A, and inside this class I will be writing one static block. This is my static block, and here I will write system.out.println. So how to declare a static block? Just we need to provide one open and close curly braces and then write static. So I will write one statement. So now I will create one test class here so that we can test this static block. So here I will create object of class A. Then what happens, let's check. I have not assigned any reference, I have not used anything, so just I have created this object. Then what happens in background, it will try to create object of class A, but it will check whether context of class A is available or not. If it is not available, then it will try to create context of class A. So context of class A will be created only once. In that case, context is not available, then it will create context and it will execute all of its static blocks. Then it will execute its constructor and then it will create object. So let's run this example so that you can understand. I did nothing, just I have created objects. Let's suppose I will create two objects. So static block executed only once because it will check in second time also, it will check whether context of class A is available or not. Context of class A is already available, so it won't execute this static block. Okay. One more thing, if you want to load this class A, then so we have one class. Class is a class and for name is its method and we are loading class A and we need to write source declaration. So we need to provide the package name as well as class name. Okay, let's run this. So I'm loading this class using for name. This is the for name method from class. Class is a class in Java and for name it's static method. Okay, this is the static method. So it will load the class. So whenever we loads the class, it will tries to create context of that class. So any method, whether you are using class.forName or you are creating an object or any method like serialization, deserialization, everything. However, you are creating the object, then it is mandatory the context will be available in the RAM. So to create a context, it is mandatory to execute its static blocks. That is the intention. By creating new object, also it will check. So it's already loaded, then we will try to create. Then what happens? Let's check. We have loaded the class using class.forName and now I will try to create object of, then let's check what happens. So static block always executed once when class loads. Any method you can load your class, whether creating object, whether using this for name methods or whether serialization, deserialization. So multiple ways to create a context of class. So this is done. Second part, we will check for non-static block. So let's suppose in class A we have one non-static block. Non-static block is nothing but just we need to create open and curly braces. That this is called non-static block. That's it. Okay. So non-static block always executed when object about to create. So before creation of object, it is mandatory to execute all of its non-static block, then construct. So always higher precedence or higher priority goes to blocks, then constructor. So in that case, let me comment all this. Just I am creating object of class A, then what happens? New A. In that case, it will check whether context of class is available or not. It is not available, then it will execute a static block. Then it will check if it is context is available, then it will check object non-static block is there or not. Then it will execute non-static block. Then it will execute constructor. Then it will creates an object. So by creating this, let's run this example. So if you see here, just I have created object. So inside static block executed first and non-static block executed after that. Now I will create one constructor here so that we can understand which has the higher. I will create one constructor. one statement I will write here. Okay. So now we have three blocks: static, non-static, and constructor. This is a functionality we can say, but in terms of blocks we can say it's a block as well. So what happens then? Here, execute the static block, execute non-static block, execute constructor. Then only object will be created. So if you see here, inside static block, inside non-static block, and inside constructor of class. So let's suppose we have multiple static block and multiple non-static blocks. Let's suppose it's a non-static block 1, and we have one more static block, that is non-static block 2. We can have multiple non-static and static block in our class. Similarly to object, sorry, constructor. This is non-static block 2, and we have, okay, let's start with static only. I will run this example. Okay, so first static block 2 executed and then static block 1 executed. Why? Because I have written, so it will execute line by line, we can say. So whichever I am writing first, that is the higher priority. So it will execute this block, then it will execute the second block. If I change the order, then it will execute non static block first, and then after that it will execute a static block second. Let's run this. In which order you are writing, it will execute on that order, but it is mandatory to execute all of its static block to create a context of class. Similarly for non-static as well, let's suppose we have two block 1 and block 2, and so let's run this example. I have two blocks, non-static, sorry. This is not static, this is non-static. Okay, so inside static block 1, inside static block 2, inside non-static block 1, and inside non-static block 2, then it will execute the constructor. So always high priority goes to static block, then non-static block, then constructor. Thanks for watching.